being here. My name is Raz Sharizan Rindu. I am the moderator for the event. Thank you for your interest in the discussion, virtual discussion on identity politics, transphobia, homophobia, and queerphobia. We have our speakers with us today, Megan Stephen. Megan Stephen is based in Kota Kinabalu. She's a transgender woman. She will introduce herself further after. We also have Purba Widnyana from Indonesia, GAYa NUSANTARA, and also Amar Alfikar. But before we get to the speakers, I'd like to welcome my co-moderator for this event, Jennifer. Jennifer, maybe you can briefly introduce yourself now, I think.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jennifer. I am the program officer for Serata. And for those of you who just joined, I'm so sorry if my voice is very unpleasant to hear right now. It's because I'm losing my voice. But I hope you enjoy the session. And props to Raz. He's our intern for Serata, and he has been the one putting this all together. So thank you to all the speakers that have agreed to have an open dialogue about this topic. And for those of you who have joined us this afternoon, whether you're from Indonesia, whether you're from here, Malaysia, Kuching, and KL also maybe I've seen a few. So thank you for spending some time with us this afternoon. And I'll be passing the moderate back to the moderator, Raz. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. So I see that some participants have only came in now. Maybe you can introduce yourself in the chat box. I think I should repeat again. I am the moderator for the event. I am a student intern from the Society for Equality, Respect, and Trust for All. I am the moderator for this event this afternoon. And I think before I introduce the speakers further, let me just briefly explain how the discussion will go. So each speaker will be given 15 minutes to speak, to present their topic. And then we will have a Q&A session towards the end of the discussion. And so now, to welcome our first speaker, first I'd like to introduce her. Megan Stephen, I'm sure most of you who are based in Kota Kinabalu, Malaysia, is familiar with Megan. So Megan is a transgender woman based in KK, Sabah, Malaysia. She is a human rights defender. Now, Megan Stephen is also the consultant for Justice for Sisters, an NGO based in Malaysia that advocates strongly on LGBTI rights. Now, Megan's experience in activism is nearly a decade now, which she began in 2014. So in this discussion today, Megan is going to be talking about, her presentation is going to be about binary is a norm. So without further ado, I think let's welcome Megan Stephen. Megan, 15 minutes are now yours.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. So I'm actually currently in Pahang, is another state in Malaysia, but then I'll be flying back to Sabah this evening. So today we're going to talk about binary. I think that all of you, I mean, a part of Amar and Purba, I think other than that, how many of you know that what is binary actually? You know, because our society is stuck with, you know, binary, only know that, allow me to share my slide. Sorry. So how many of us, you know, actually know what is binary? It's because of, you know, when we talk about binary, we have this gender ideology where just man and woman exist. And yeah, like man is blue, woman is pink, you know, and man can grow beard, you know, man shouldn't have long hair, woman. So all of this is actually stuck in like binary. We're stuck in the world of binary. And yeah, so I think that some of you have attended my classes. What is SOGI, sexual orientation, gender identity, expression, and basically gender is a social construct, and it is, it is something that is complex, and is a like, how do you say, is included with a lot of things like your behavior, your mannerism, personality, the way that you dress, thought, dreams, and more. So that is gender. But binary is more to where the society already say that this, man should be this, woman should be this, and man, should be controlling everything. Woman is too sensitive. So this is what is going on actually. So today I would like to talk about binary is a norm. It actually is being created by the society. Amar, do correct me if I'm wrong, okay? Okay, so next will be in gender binary. So refer to societal or cultural belief where only men and women exist. So some society, like our society in Malaysia, or, basically, I think Malaysia and Indonesia share about mostly is the same, like a lot of things in common, tend to recognize just two gender, male and female. So the idea that, only two gender is sometimes called gender binary, because binary means having two parts only, where male and female. And yeah, so further, the gender binary perpetuates the idea that gender is synonym with sex, which is actually wrong. So sex is actually, being assigned at birth, based on your genital, okay? Yeah, whether you have, vagina, or you have, penis, or you're intersex, that is sex. However, like I say, gender is basically based on your personality, your behavior. That is gender, basically the first slide, what is gender? So yeah, so why I talk about binary is because I want to relate it to non-binary people, because a lot of us usually mess up or mix up non-binary. Like, is this people exist? Is non-binary, like, what is non-binary? People always confuse with non-binary people, because they always say that, like I say, they only know that men and women exist, so they don't acknowledge what is non-binary. They think that non-binary people doesn't exist, which non-binary exists like in the millennia, like long, like 1,000 years ago. In millennia, this non-binary people does exist already. Yeah, I think that, in the Buddhist culture, they do have it. So I related in like my, my ancestor, my creator. So long time ago, I guess, like in Sabah, we don't really have the terms, to address all of this, so that they just say that, oh, it's supposed to be female, it's supposed to be male, something like that. It's supposed to be a man. And like Bobo Izan, okay? They can consider as a, Bobo Izan is a like shaman, something like that. A dukun, if you, so not dukun, but then something like, a spiritual person. So yeah, and so people always think that they suppose like this Bobo Izan supposed to be female, because they are more sensitive. But actually, when we look back, in the history, can relate it. Most of them are non-binary, actually. Same as the Buddhist, isn't it? The Buddhist, I think the ritual practitioner, they do have like non-binary people. So yeah. So next, okay. So non-binary people, okay, they they an umbrella terms that describe the gender don't fall into of these two categories, whether they don't like to be identified as male or female. They don't like to be identified man or woman. They just love to be like not being described anything. They want to be because of maybe sometimes they want to be masculine a bit. They want to be feminine a bit. If you do have questions, do drop by in the chat box, okay? So non-binary, they don't want to stuck in this gender ideology. They don't want to become either as man or woman. They just want to like have either they are gender queer, a gender bigender, gender fluid, and sometimes that trans people do exist, like we have trans man, transgender man, transgender woman, but then some people don't want to be identified as both of it. Either they don't want to be like transgender man or transgender woman. They just want to be like transgender, like non-binary, like just transgender. Yeah, okay. So this is what actually non-binary means for for the LGBT community. I guess, am I talking too fast?
You're doing all right, Megan.
Okay. So, this I think is the last second one is, so here we are just trying to show all of you that, so there is like a man category and a woman. So non-binary is in between or outside, don't want to be identified. So this is what basically I refer to, Justice for Sister and doing some research based on online. So if you do have questions regarding about non-binary, you actually may ask me. I will try to explain it further for you. So because I think that our society is, we stuck in a society that man, always we take it as like a baby, gender revealing for baby. So we always have this assumption that the boy must be blue, the girl is the pink. Why can't like a boy be having a pink or a girl having maybe green? So we stuck is this because of the society say that okay, men must be blue, woman must be pink. Yeah, I guess that's all from me. And I would like to thanks to my Sarata for having this session and Justice for Sister. So later I'll be sharing all of this link for you so that you can understand what is actually binary and non-binary. So you have a better understanding.
Okay, thank you, Megan. But just to clarify what you're saying, since birth, you are saying that our identities are often being imposed on us, and we have to live up by the expectation of the society because of the expectation that is being put on us. Is that correct?
Exactly. So
Okay.
that like, myself born, having penis. So my mom and my parents always thought that I can become the man of the family, because I'm the eldest. So I can lead the whole family. But I tell my parents that even though I become a transgender woman, I still can lead the family. You see? So the difference is because of the society thing that, a man should be a leader, something like that. So, and at point, you are the eldest among all, and then you are, you want to have a penis. So they assume you that you need to align. So sex and gender doesn't need to be aligned. Yeah. So sex is genital, your private part, where gender is this. The way that you talk, the way that you speak, your behavior, your personality, the way that you dress. This one is gender, the whole thing.
All right. Thanks, Megan. Is there anything you'd like to add maybe before we go to the next speaker?
I think all good. So if you do have, the participant have any question, do drop in the chat box.
Yeah. We will try to collect as many questions as we can. Oh, would you like to answer that question now, Megan, because you still have time for that? Or would you prefer to have the questions answered during the Q&A session?
I think I'll list all of the question, together and then answer it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, to all participants who just came in, welcome. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting the event. I am the moderator for the session. I'm the moderator for this event. The topic for this discussion, the theme for the discussion is political identity, transphobia, homophobia, and queerphobia. So earlier, Megan has presented her topic, which is identity is a norm. We have 3 speakers with us today. Each speaker is given 15 minutes. Don't worry if it exceeds about 15 minutes, that's fine. We will have Q&A session towards the end of the discussion. So if you have any questions, please do drop your question in the chat box. We will have the speakers answer them by the end of the session. So now, Purba, you are ready? Right. Before we go to the next speaker, let me briefly introduce our second speaker, which is Purba Widnyana. Now, Purba is a secretary and project manager at GAYa NUSANTARA. He is a passionate and committed advocate for LGBTI rights movement in Indonesia. He holds a master's degree from Monash University in Australia. He studied international development. Now, in this discussion, Purba is going to be talking about economic injustice, the unresolved issues among LGBTI people in Indonesia. Now, Purba, whenever you are ready, let's welcome our second speaker. 15 minutes are now yours, Purba.
Yes, thank you. Can everyone see? Oh, hang on. Hang on. There you go. Can everyone see it now?
Yes.
Yeah, cool. Yes, thank you, Raz, and thank you, Megan, for your insightful session. I was actually about to give some comment, actually, well, a comment actually to your session, but probably that could come later. I was about having heard that you mentioned about sex and gender. It gave me some realization that that language is really limited. But then again, we can talk about that later, if that's okay. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So everyone, my part today is about queerphobia, or the fear and hatred of queer people, how it can have a significant impact on economic development, and how that puts LGBTIQ plus community at a disadvantage. The reason I chose this topic is because our work on HIV and sexual health has been very important. But we also need to focus on the economic and social factors that impact the lives of LGBTIQ plus people. I believe that we cannot achieve true equality for LGBTIQ plus people without addressing the economic and social barriers that they face. Economic justice, that's how we call it in our organization, is very new area for GAYa NUSANTARA and me. Hence, the contents of my presentation will use examples and data, mostly from Indonesia. So therefore, besides sharing my views, I would like to also use this opportunity to learn from everyone here. To get different views, maybe sharing your experience regarding economic development in your area, probably. Yeah. I will begin by providing an overview of the challenges that queer people in Indonesia experience in workplaces. I will then discuss how these challenges adversely contribute to the economic development. I will also briefly present the results of a research regarding this issue conducted in Indonesia. And last, I will conclude by sharing the strategies that GAYa Nusantara is using to tackle the issue. Now, because I have only 15 minutes, I want to quickly jump to sharing an experience that I will never forget. I've never felt the need to come out at work. I just be myself. Back then, when my boyfriend, my ex-boyfriend, now I am now single and super ready to mingle. So when he picked me up at work, he would be waiting for me in the lobby, and I would introduce him to my colleagues, by his name. I didn't add unnecessary details, that he's my boyfriend or whatever, because I believe if my colleagues paying attention, they would they would have read our intimate body language. Yeah, and besides, since they are on my social media, they should know that I'm queer because I post queer stuff and whatnot on on social media. So my story begins when a senior teacher in my office came to me for advice on how to handle a job application from someone who appeared to be transgender. The applicant had a tattoo photo that looked like a man, short hair, they look a bit beefier, but the photo on their ID card looked like a woman. And having the fact that my colleague came to me, I assumed she knew about me, about my sexual orientation. So I asked her, why that was a problem to her. She said, because she looked LGBT. So that was the exact words that she used. She looked LGBT, She then added that she didn't have any problems with it, but afraid that the board members might think that the applicant would bring a negative influence to the students. And then I said, what about me? But you don't look gay, that's what she said. Yeah, so that's very interesting answer. You don't look gay. Immediately after that, I concluded that people are afraid with how you look. They have all these crazy ideas when they see people who are different. When you don't look different, you're fine until they find out that you're gay or lesbian, until they find out about your sexual orientation. I truly think people like me, cis gay men or cis lesbian women are lucky because they can hide behind their heteronormative gender expression, while transgender people, including non-binary, for example, they don't even have the what do you call that? The opportunity, the chance to enter the first layer in employment, to be interviewed, because they are very visible. So that's how queer stigma and discrimination that prevent queer people from economic opportunities. So that story I told you was in 2013. The question is it still happening now? Because now is 2023. People have been saying that, like when they see something weird, they would say it's 2023. Is that still happening, right? So the answer is still, Yes, it is still happening. Now, I'm going to show you some more examples. It can be triggering because when I was preparing this presentation, I was triggered. So yeah, that's a bit of a warning. Now, you see there, in 2016, when the anti-queer sentiment suddenly arose, it was started by a negative statement from our higher education minister, who said that LGBT is not allowed in campuses. Then that statement rolled like a snowball, causing what we call LGBT panic. Universities started pushing anti-queer policies that deny the rights of people to get education. And do you remember when I said about they will sack you, from your job when they found out that you're gay? The case in 2019 is one of the biggest examples. I call it one of the biggest because it got picked up by international media and made a documentary out of it. Yeah. So when you read this, would you agree if I say that these are examples of forced poverty? Would you agree with that? Yeah. Now, here's another example of forced poverty. These trans women were doing a legit business, running a beauty salon in Aceh. Despite running a legit business, just because they're trans women, they were forced, they were dragged out from the house, causing trauma. It's very hard, isn't it? Not to be angry when you hear such things. Stories like this. It's making you angry, like very angry, because just because they're trans women, they're living their life, they're running legit business, and people treat them like that. You can see in the picture, the police shake their head, saying that they want them to behave like men. I happen to know one of them. She had fled to Medan, the neighboring city, which is not exactly queer friendly. The mayor of Medan, who is also the son-in-law of President Jokowi, made an anti-queer statement saying Medan is LGBT free. So that's just really, really sad. Now, mind you that these are very, very small examples of queerphobia that generates stigma and discrimination, which resulted in social exclusion. So, what are the negative? What are the negative effects of queerphobia? Taking from the research done by Lee Badgett, queerphobia hurts economic development because they are closely connected through multiple links. Queerphobia, like I said, generates discrimination and stigma, which then generates social exclusion. You can see in the picture, discrimination in workplace means lower productivity. A lower productivity could also mean job loss. Job loss pushes people to follow their survival instinct, which could lead to crime. Crime puts more people in prison, and so on and so on. So it really a never-ending cyclical process, which can lead to poverty, homelessness, mental health issues, and suicide. And all of these cause lower economic output of the country. Now, so what about Indonesia? The research from Lee Badgett reflects exactly what's happening in Indonesia. July last year, one organization in our coalition did a research about economic situation of queer people in Indonesia. Unfortunately, though, I cannot mention here the title of the research yet because it's not yet officially launched, but it's going to be launched next year. So if you're curious with the results, you can email me. It's going to be launched next year in January, but it's in Indonesian language, so you might need a little translating work there. So yeah. discussing the economic situation of the queer community in Indonesia is complex. Now, reflecting on Indonesia's poverty line as of March 2022, the research was done in 2022. So as of March 2022, the poverty line was at a little over 500,000 per capita per month. The majority of the respondents, 81%, had an income of more than 1 million per month over the past 6 months. Yeah, that suggests that most of them cannot be categorized as poor, obviously. Yeah. However, discussing the economic situation cannot solely focus on the what do you call that? The balance sheet, of income and income and expenditure. For example, over 46% of respondents do have an income in the range of 1 million and 3 million per month. But when reviewed by province, the monthly income of the majority of respondents is still far below the provincial minimum wage set by the government. Just a little context for the audience in Malaysia. Every province in Indonesia has a provincial minimum wage. On average, across nation, it is around 3 million. But in a nutshell, the results of the research show that over 65% of queer people in Indonesia live below the minimum wage. So to me personally, that means they are poor. There's an Indonesian proverb that says, "Sudah jatuh tertimpa tangga." So the literal translation is, not only did you fall down the ladder, but then the ladder fell on you. And who knows what else might happen next. Yeah. Economic vulnerability is not only the challenge that queer people have to face. Another challenge is that is present and intertwined with the with economic vulnerability is discrimination. The research traced the experiences of the queer community from the process of job search, employment, unemployment, to finding a new job, and elements of discrimination were present throughout the process. Discrimination occurs in various, spectrums and different forms and perpetrators. There's gossip, prejudice, pay cuts, what else? Dismissal, harassment, physical and sexual violence are perpetrated by a range of actors, from colleagues to employers to clients. Now, similar to my story at the beginning of the the presentation, visibility emerges as the main factor driving discrimination, and this is often the reason why community members, queer people, hide their identity and try to express themselves like normal people. Now, what are the strategies we as queer organizations do? We use utilize existing resources. We created GAYa, Collective Creative, or Creative Collective, which aims at providing a safe space to connect and nurture Indonesian queer professionals and business owners. GAYa helps build their business capacity and professional skills. In Indonesian language, we say queer belanjain queer, or queer buy from queer people. You see, we encourage them to employ fellow queers that they that they meet at our gatherings before employing non-queer people. Yeah. So this idea of Korea was also inspired by COVID-19. Next is, together with our coalition, we want to push forward a comprehensive anti-discrimination law that explicitly mentions the protection of queer people, aka people with diverse gender and sexuality, including people with disability. So that's why we use the term comprehensive, because we want everyone, if you are part of the minority, religious minority, sexual minority, gender minority, people with disability, we want you to be mentioned in the bill. Now, we are at the stage of drafting the bill. Next step is that to propose the bill to the government. So I guess that's all that I can share for now. I'm looking forward to having the Q&A and probably sharing some what do you call that, ideas, from you about how to improve the situation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Purba, for that informative presentation. That was very wonderful. I see some participants have just came in. Just to tell you that I am the moderator for the event. I am Raza Shamrizan Rindu, a student intern from the Society for Equality, Respect, and Trust for All. I have my co-moderator here today, Jennifer James. So we have heard from Megan Steven, who presented a topic on gender is a norm, and Purba on economic injustice. Now, to all participants, we will have a Q&A session after our third speaker. We will have about 30 to 45 minutes Q&A. Hopefully, everyone will engage in the discussion. If you have thoughts on what was presented earlier by our two speakers, do feel free to drop your thoughts in the chat box, or you can wait to speak towards the end of the session. Now, welcoming the third speaker, I'm sure all of you, if not most of you, know who this speaker is. This speaker is Amar Alfikar. Amar is a trans man based in Indonesia. He is the founder of IQAMAH, Indonesian Queer Muslim and Allies based in Indonesia. Amar is known for his activism challenging religious-based queerphobia. And Amar is also the alumni from the University of Birmingham. He studied theology and religion. Now, in this discussion, Amar is going to be presenting a topic on spectrum of faith, sexuality, and gender diversity. So Amar, 15 minutes are now yours. Feel free to use it as you like. Thank you.
Hello.
Amar.
Sorry, yeah. Can you hear me clearly?
Loud and clear. Thank you, Amar.
Hello everyone. It's amazing to meet all of you and some familiar faces here. Thank you, Ross and Sarata, for opening this discussion. Something that is really difficult for Indonesian queer community right now, because there have been like huge backlash happening for the last, I think, 2 months now. But yeah, I think we used to to this backlash, and yeah, I mean, showing solidarity and bringing this discussion like this, even through just a virtual meeting. I think it is good to have our queer siblings here and allies who wants to just talk and share share our stories, share our visions. Yeah, that's it. So for today, I'm gonna share with you about the complexity of faith, gender, and sexuality, because when we talk about homophobia and transphobia, and I'm listening very seriously for what Megan has shared, and also Purba, and it is good to see the what is it called, the intersection between the economy and how the binary is forced as a norm in our society. and also how this kind of like hatred and phobia kind of impact the economy. And now I'm gonna share with you about the maybe it's kind of looking back at the histories, the complex history, how the transphobia and homophobia came in our society, and how the faith today is always portraying queer identity and community as an enemy, where while it was not like this before. And yeah, for the beginning, I would like to share first that I think Malaysia and Indonesia, we have similarity in terms of religiosity, quote unquote, because both of the nation like consider religion and faith as very very important thing in their life, even in the public policy, in the way they interact with others. Unfortunately, it is also influenced much by the idea, the interpretation that is brought by the heteronormativity, the patriarchy, and position the diversity as something that is defiant or defiant. Yeah, something that is sinful, quote unquote. So let's debunk all the myths surrounding the faith and gender and sexuality, because it is not as simple as we thought, and as people most I think mainstream society think that religion is something that is very strict, that is very monolithic, that there's only one interpretation, there's only one way of understanding, of practicing religion or faith, while in fact it's not like that, because there is a lot of context, there is a lot of reality that is surrounding the way people perceive, and the politics came in to also influence the religion. The gap, there is a huge gap between the text, what I mean text here is the holy text, and then the context of the text, and also the reality where the text was produced, and the context where the text is understood today, or in the past. So I think I want to how to say this, to bring us all at the beginning of the idea why religion came to the society. Well, if we take a look at the historical, histories of let's say the Prophet Muhammad or Jesus or Buddha Gautama, they came in the society where injustices, even the inequality existed, and they came bringing the religion and saying that there should be actually the universal value where everyone is equal before God, that everyone is created equal, that we have to respect others, and we have to promote justices. That is actually the initial ideas and spirit of every religion, every faith, I believe. So, but in today's reality, religion and faith has been being monopolized, has been misquoted and misused to justify hatred, patriarchy, and binary that Megan has said. And unfortunately, what we are seeing today is like the diversity is something that is portrayed as sinful by the religion, and then religion is used to justify the inequality, injustices, and even discrimination and alienation to others. So this is the gap, and also about the history and how this all messed up idea of religious-based hatred and patriarchy came to the society. But I think Megan is really true when sharing that actually gender diversity has been very integral part of society. and they existed long before modernity, long before the colonialism, long before even the term gender is coined. And there were times in many spaces around the world, actually, where the gender diversity is considered as something holy, something sacred, something that is very spiritual. You know, from the South Asian context, Megan also mentioned about a Bugis culture who believe in 5 genders. In South Asian countries like India, Nepal, Pakistan, Bangladesh, they believe that that gender is not only 2, but there are actually the 3rd gender, and they actually have high position in the spiritual community. And in South Asian countries, they also began to recognize 3rd gender as part of the legal identity in their countries. And also in Bisu, that has been mentioned by Megan, and also in also pretty much in the South Asian countries, they also there are stories where the Sufi leaders were practicing cross-dressing, and they were still considered as a leader of their Muslim Sufi community, and they were renowned for their leadership, and they were acknowledged, and they were not ostracized, they were not alienated, and even they were quite having a very special position within the Sufi Muslim community, particularly in South Asian countries. So yeah, and now I think because Indonesia and Malaysia, we share similarity in terms of being the Muslim majority countries. I would like also to highlight the history of how the homoerotism and gender diversity was also actually part of the Muslim community. And there were times, again, where they were embraced, they were even celebrated, and not, again, persecuted by the mainstream Muslim community, again, in the pre-modern era. This is the example of the poem written by Abu Nawas, which is also known as a Sufi leader, but also he was known also having a homoerotic relationship with other men. And there were quite numbers of poems written by him talking about his interest and his love towards other men. And in the left picture, this is the illustration of Sahabas of Iran, where it depicted the relationship, the romantic relationship amongst men who were public figures of that time. And then there are actually the classical books in Arabic that talked about the gender and sexual diversity. And again, this is the illustration of the Makomat characters. Makomat is a book written by Al-Jahiz, and Makomat written by Badi'uzzaman Al-Hamadani, and it is a book about, again, the abandon of gender and sexual diversity in the Muslim context at that time. And there was no anywhere in the book talking about the ostracization or the persecution toward this, let's say, queer community, what we understand today. So these books and the reality is somehow talking the opposite of the mainstream, what the mainstream Muslim community understand today. Like the conservatism or Muslim community mainstream today will say that, no, you are queer community is not part of the religion, and queer identity is rejected, is sinful, and and it should be criminalized, it should be ostracized, but it was not like that during the pre-modern era. And even the hadith or the text was telling the stories about mukhonnathun. Mukhonnathun is the term that was used by the classical fuqaha or Muslim jurisprudence or Muslim scholars. And it is interesting because there are actually already the terms that are used by the Muslim scholars to refer to those who are, let's say, not cis male or not cis women, and then they use mukhonnathun as a term, and then there is a lot of interpretation in this text. People today will say that, listen, this hadith saying that mukhonnathun is rejected by Prophet Muhammad. But what the text actually saying is that the Prophet treated mukhonnathun as a woman. And even there are stories where mukhonnathun or trans women that we understand today, they are hired by the Prophet and to help him in his household. There are stories where mukhonnathun or the trans women were welcomed in the women's spaces. But there was incident where there was one mukhonnath who how does this spill the tea, share the gossiping about the secrets of the prophet's households. And then the prophet got angry, and then the prophet ostracized this mukhonnathun. So the context is that Prophet Muhammad got angry and expel the mukhonnathun or trans woman, not because of her gender identity or her sexual orientation, but merely because this person is harassing and sharing the secrets of the personal lives of Prophet Muhammad and his household. So again, the rejection is not because of gender identity actually, but because of the sexual harassment. So whoever does the sexual harassment, no matter if the person is transgender or cisgender or gay or hetero, then Prophet Muhammad would reject. So this is the context, actually, the text, and now is understood differently by the mainstream Muslim community. So the question is how Muslims today understand the text like that, right? So this is actually, I would say, how to say biang kerok, Mas Purba? Biang kerok. How do you say biang kerok? Anyone can help me? Biang kerok.
The perpetrator?
Yeah, okay. I don't know if
I don't know.
Malaysia also use the biang kerok, but yes, in Indonesia we use biang kerok. Does Malaysia also use? Okay, biang kerok. Yeah, so let's use biang kerok, or the perpetrator, or the reason why Muslims today understand the text like that is very different before. So this is the reason, because the colonialism came. Whether it is Britain or Dutch, they colonized countries, and they were actually the first people who introduced the law that criminalized sexual and gender minority. It was them who brought the first time the section 377A that talks about, hey, if you are man but you are feminine, or if you are women but you are masculine, then you are unnatural. So even the term unnatural, that was specifically introduced by the Britain. And in Indonesia, the Dutch also brought the term abnormal to refer to the tribe who has different gender expression. So this is actually the first persecution and the first attempt of marginalization toward gender and sexual minority. And even the first persecution that happened in Indonesia, it was during the Dutch colonialism, where they burned alive a slave who who was feminine, and then the Dutch created the moral police, policy moral, or Zedenpolitie, and this is the body that the hand, or the I don't know, the lembaga or the institution that was created by the Dutch, specifically dedicated to find homosexual people and then criminalize and dehumanize them. So this, and even I think, I don't know about the Malaysia, I'm not a historian, but I think there are still large numbers of colonized countries that have not decriminalized and have not rejected the 377A in their country, including in South Africa, in some part of South Asia. So this is the history, how the theology, the religion impacted by the colonialism, and today it is being complicated because of the global identity, the politic of identity. And now the queer of faith today, we are strangulated between the colonial legacies, populist politics, conservatism, and the religious-based trauma that is being internalized and projected within both faith and queer community. That is kind of the history and also the today's projection. And now I think well, I think part of being queer is that we are born to fight, and that we are we are taught, quote unquote, by this hatred to be really resilient and to be persistent in opening so many doors. So this is the example, despite, you know, the complexity of history, the conservatism that is happening, and the global phenomenon of these you know, identity, the politics of identity that is somehow also more marginalizing queer community globally. But there is actually space, at least from my own perspective in Indonesia, where we have actually numbers of faith allies and academic and scholars who work with us in developing inclusive faith narrative toward gender and sexual diversity. I think, yeah, Purba is also part of GAYa NUSANTARA. There are numbers of publication done by GAYa NUSANTARA as well, in bringing this kind of narrative to the public, and at least to the queer community, to have them, you know, accept and heal from the religious-based trauma. So, well, when I structuring these books and resources, I realized that, well, actually we are doing great in you know, in pushing, you know, queer inclusive faith narratives, at least within Indonesian context. So this is like the resource that I would like to share with you, that is done by Indonesian queer activists and allies. So yes, and yeah, to close, I think this is a very interesting statement that is that was stated by one of the famous Muslim scholar in Indonesia. So the first legal change gender trial in Indonesia in 1973. There was this Muslim scholar, Abdul Malik Karim, or Buya Hamka. He was the Quranic Mufassir. Mufassir is the scholar who interpret Quran. He has Al-Azhar Tafsir Quran, but he gives what is it? He testified and support Ruby Vivian for her legal change application or submission to the court, and it was actually approved by the court. And it was this Buya Hamka who gave this statement and saying that I support this legal gender recognition, and this is his statement saying that Islamic doctrine teaches Muslim that our knowledge must be used for the benefit of human life. So the legal offer to change the birth certificate status from male to female on behalf of PN is not against God's law and is in accordance with Islamic teaching that prioritize benefits in the eyes of humanity. I think this is the voice that we need to amplify more and more and more today, specifically because we are facing very harsh conservatism, using the text, using holy text to push that, to criminalize and to dehumanize diversity. It's not only queer identity, but I think when we talk about the conservatism, it's also about the religious minority in both of our country who are also facing the criminalization, right? There are a lot of religious minority, gender minority, sexual minority who are the targets of this conservatism. So yeah, I think that is all that I would like to share, and I hope we can have more discussion after this. Thank you. Back to you, Raj.
Thank you so much, Amar. That was very informative. Thank you so much for the presentation. We have, I think, 2 people just came in. Let me just introduce them about the discussion here today. To those who just came in, we have 3 speakers. They have all presented. Now it is time for Q&A session. But let me again introduce who they are. The first speaker was Megan Steven, who presented a topic on binaries and norm. And then the second speaker was Purba Widnyana, who presented a topic on economic injustice, the unresolved issues among LGBTI people in Indonesia. And then finally, we had another speaker, Amar, who presented a topic on spectrum of faith, sexuality, and gender diversity. So now it is time for Q&A session. So what we are going to do is, if you wish to ask questions, do raise up your hand. And I need to remind the participants to be respectful. Do not attack anybody in any form, or you will otherwise be muted or potentially removed from the room. So I think the first person who in this room wanted to ask Megan a question, I think it was Dr. Stewart Giman. Would you like to ask the question to Megan? Or do you wish me to read the question you posed in the chat box?
I think I can scroll it back just now where Stewart asking, what about those who are androgen? Do they consider as binary since they have both male and female gonad? I think that, I mean, most androgen people, consider themselves as, non-binary, because gonad is a sex gland, is different. It's 2 different things, androgen and, gonad is 2 different things. So most androgynous people, they consider themselves as, non-binary. So gonad is like, the sex gland inside where, usually intersex people, they will like having, 2 different parts. I mean, Purba, just now you was like, would like to discuss about the different, correct me, the sex and gender things. I think that you should talk about this, gonad more.
Actually, I'm no expert, but I think gonad is really on the, the body's, side of it. So I guess what we need to do is to really separate between what you feel, right? What you feel about yourself and the physiology of your body, really. So if you want to label yourself as non-binary, then sure. So you can label yourself as whatever you want, really, if that's what you feel like. And the physical side of it is really a different thing, I guess that's it.
So moving on, if anybody in the in this room who wish to ask questions to the participants, or otherwise I will stir up the discussion with the speakers. Please raise up your hand if you wish to speak. We will get to you after. Anybody? So I think while this participants think of a question to, oh, this is from Dr. Stewart. He said, "Hi Purba, I was wondering, is there any specific law in Indonesia that specifically mentioned that queer or transgender can't have the right to work as others?"
So yeah, thank you for the question. There's no law. So being gay, being lesbian, being one of those acronyms, LGBTIQ plus, being queer, there's no law, meaning that it's not legal, it's not illegal. But then again, the problem is how they have been treated, or we have been treated. You know, we're not illegal, but we're not also protected. We have been discriminated against. Our rights have been barred, you know. So yeah, quickly answering your question.
Okay. Anybody else who wish to ask the speaker a question?
Can I just share screen because I just made it?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Amar.
I thought I was sharing like all the time. Okay.
And I was hesitant to stop you actually.
Sorry. So it just quick, quick preview of what I did. So yeah, something like this. So yeah, the pictures of the gender diversity and the tags, the books, and then the text, and then the picture of the section, and it's the picture of the queer activists around the globe who are reclaiming faith. And this is the book that is published in Indonesian context. I mean, I'm really proud with this work, so it just I have to share this, so thank you.
Right. Well, since there is no question from the participant, maybe I can start with one while the participant think of a question to ask. So Amar, I'm just wondering, I remember being a 14-year-old boy in school. I knew very well that I was queer in some ways, and so I thought that because I'm slightly different, and then I was not religious. I grew up in such a family that we don't practice religion very much, but because of how ustas or teachers in school who try to impose religious teachings very much on you, that you somehow perceive this to be a bit too much for you as somebody who don't practice or expose very much to religious scriptures or teachings. How would one defend themselves in a situation where they don't know very much about religion, but then they knew that there is a misconception in religion? How would one defend themselves in such a situation? Because I know quite a number of people who they know for sure, and they have heard from talks or read some materials that says not all religion actually rejects queer and transgenderism, but because there are people, especially in the academic world, who say so, and the people who are victims of this do not have enough knowledge on how to defend or respond to such a thing. What can they do from your experience? Maybe you can share some of your thoughts.
Okay. I will not, tell the person or all of you to say, oh, you have to do this, because everyone has their own unique experiences, and everyone has their own capacity and know themselves better. I mean, you know yourself better in a way that how you strategize with any situation. So, but the first thing, perhaps that first thing to say is that there is no when people say religion says A, it is actually not religion that says A. because it is the people of religion who say and interpret the religion as an A. That is the first thing to know. And to say that, you know, for example, in Muslim tradition, it was once very rich with the diversity of interpretation. The reality is that even today, Muslim today is not monolithic. For example, in Indonesian context, we have Muslim who do what we call doa kunut during prayer, but there are those who don't practice doa kunut during prayers, and it is okay. I mean, that is only one single, and it is even in the religious practices. It's not with the broader context. So what I mean is that it is important to actually remind religious people that the way you see practice religion is not the only truth or the only interpretation of your own religion. And every person, even in the same religion, even in, for example, in Muslim, we have different mazhab, and even within different mazhab, there is different institutions, and even within institution, there is also diversity of the way they do see and practice their religion. So I think that is the one foundation that we can, you know, can bring up to the table. And okay, if you believe in that interpretation, that's your right, but I also have my own interpretation, and that is my right. So religious freedom is not imposing your interpretation to others, but religious freedom is that you have your interpretation and that is your right, but also you respect others who have not only different religion, but also those who have some religion but have different interpretation. So that is the foundation, and then from that, you know, you can explore more. And I think also important is when we build a dialogue, it is not only us who wants to be understood, but also seeing that other peoples are also struggling with the entrenched stigma, entrenched with the rooted hatred that was imposed to their life when since they're kids. So because I have experiences where I meet with the people who used to be very transphobic and homophobic, and then because of they are willing to, you know, to open the dialogue and then to listen, then there are times where then eventually understand that okay, I can understand the diversity, and then I can respect. So the patience, also the compassion to the dialogue, even with those who are very hateful toward us. But again, it is your own energy. You know yourself. You know, like if you have energy to do so, then do it. But if you don't, then, you know, just limit yourself, because I think what is most important is also our mental health, dealing with a lot of struggling. So I think, yeah, you know, I mean, each of us have our own limitation and boundaries. Yeah.
Thank you, Amar. Yeah, I asked that question because I know a lot of people who are in that position, but they just don't know how to defend or respond to such a situation. So anyway, thanks for the thoughts. Anybody in the audience who wish to ask a question? If you don't want to ask a question, maybe you can share your thoughts. Feel free. We will unmute you. It's an open discussion. Feel free to say anything. Just be respectful. While waiting, maybe Purba, you raise up your hand. Feel free to speak, Purba.
Yes. I also want to add, you know, what Amar has said. The thing about different interpretation is that, you know, those who have different interpretation, they tend to violently, you know, want to impose what they believe to other people, you know, and telling them or labeling them that they are kafir, they will go to hell, and, you know, all the bad thing about them because they are different, and they use violence. So that is the most scary thing about you know, being different. So as long as they are not violent, our world is supposed to be a very peaceful world. Yeah, agree, Mas Amar?
Can't agree more.
Right. We have a question, I think, or thoughts by Sharon. So let's see. How do I unmute Sharon? Sharon wish to speak, I think. Where is that? Sharon.
Hello.
Oh, right. Yeah, go ahead, Sharon. Please introduce yourself. And yeah, after that, you can ask a
Yeah,
question.
hello. My name is Sharon. I'm from Indonesia originally, but now I'm living in Germany. My pronouns is they, them, so I identify as non-binary. I just want to add something that though, I mean, yeah, all these, the speakers, all the three speakers obviously is very like, it was a good presentation. It's very educational. And I think I just want to add like, but at the end, like we can see like from these three presentation that in spite of centuries of discrimination or like intentional effort to eradicate us, yet we still here, right? So I just want to add that, you know, like a bit more positive thing. Like I want to add something positive at the end because it can be very depressing sometimes. And, you know, you go to this meeting and then you hear like all this, what have they done to us? But, you know, I think at the end of the day, we need to realize, well, at the end, we're still here, even though centuries, like, I don't know, how long is colonialism? It's like 500, 600 years. They try to eradicate us. At the end, we're still here. So I just want to say maybe because we're still here, so I just want to realize that we don't internalize their hatred. In what I mean is that homophobia, queerphobia, transphobia, it's not our problem. It's their problem. You know what I mean? Like it's not our job to justify our existence. Like because our existence doesn't need any justification. So it's their problem. They have like those transphobic, queerphobic people. They need to deal with themselves. They need to ask why are they like that? You know, we just here. We want to live our dignified life, and I think I just want to add that because sometimes I feel like, why is it we already suffering? Like we are already in survival mode, just existing here in this world, and somehow we also the one who has to do the research, do the study, and then like, like we're the one who has to do the hard labor just to justify our existence, which is, I understand that because we have to survive in this hostile world. But I think it's also important to remember that at the end of the day, it's not our job. Like, it's not our job to, I don't know, to like, we don't even need to defend ourselves, is what I mean. Like, it's their job, and yes, we have to survive. I know that. That's why we're still alive. But I just want to add that. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for the thoughts. By the way, just to inform the audience that Megan has to leave. She has to catch a flight now. She's actually outstation. Oh, Megan is here. Oh, you're still here, Megan.
I'm packing everything. But I think that Ray is asking me about what is the difference between sex and gender. So I guess I'll just explain it simple. Sex is basically your private part, that assigned by a doctor, or maybe in Malay word, I think, or Bahasa, you call it bidan. Yeah, you think? Okay. And then gender is, the way that I speak, the way that I present myself, my personality, the whole things that you're looking at me right now. I guess this one is considered as my gender identity. I hope that, this one, I answer your question. Okay. So, thank you everyone for having me. So if I'm speaking too fast, It's because I'm rushing with my time. So I hope to see all of you soon. And Amar, I'm glad to see you, and Purba. And yeah, I hope that we have discussion soon. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for being here,
Megan.
Megan. By the way, we still have 15 minutes for discussion. So please feel free to share your thoughts, or you have questions to ask the speakers. Do raise up your hand. We will unmute you to allow you to speak. Anybody else would like to ask questions? Otherwise, I will stir up the discussion. What is this? From Ray. From Amar's explanation, I remember the phrase always used. When you put out text from the quote context, you just get con. Would you like to explain that further, Amar?
No, and it's not me who need to explain. I think Ray, you want to explore that? I think that is very interesting. Yeah.
Right.
Interesting comment.
Okay. Anyway, well, since nobody's asking question, let me provide my thoughts on this, and maybe the speakers can share theirs. You see, in Malaysia, I read recently that the government of Malaysia has recently banned rainbow swatches in Malaysia because the color is often associated with LGBT. So that has a lot to do with identity, how our identity are often being politicized and stirring up homophobia, transphobia, rendering us helpless. So what is your thought on that? And if you notice, I notice, at least to my knowledge, we don't see queer individuals who are openly queer individuals being represented in the mainstream media, at least in Malaysia, to my knowledge, and also in advertising big companies that help to promote the brandings of a certain company. Maybe you can share your thoughts on that, how our identities is often being rendered helpless due to these political things going on. Who's going to speak? Purba, would you like to take that, or Omar?
Yeah, sure. It's just really silly. The moment I read that thing on the news, I was like, okay, Malaysia, good luck confiscating all the rainbows in the sky. Like, it's gonna show up, it's gonna pop up there, forever. And also plus the color of the swatches, they're not like this. They're like one color thing, right? They just have different colors, right? So it's just, I don't know, overreaction, and just, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't even know how to respond to that other than giggling. You see what I mean? Yeah. Amar, please help me out.
No, yeah, I'm confused as you as well. I mean, like, that is crazy, but also I don't know, because the same like backlash also happening in Indonesia, right, Purba? And what I remember from this situation is that there was time once in Indonesian history where the communists was positioned as the enemy, as the foreign, as the product of the West, and that it should not be here in Indonesia. And I feel this is really exactly the same. The politic of identity has been being used in Indonesia, and I don't know why. I don't understand, but like that is how the politic of identity being played by the politician. But I remember one activist boldly stated that using the minority as a scapegoat is the characteristic of the corrupted country, corrupted government. So that is the explanation of this moral panic and overreaction.
All right. Ray raised the hand. Would you like to share something?
Hello.
Hello, Ray. Please introduce yourself.
My name is Raymond. I'm from Indonesia, and I'd like to ask the speaker's opinion about the last thing happened in Malaysia from the band called 1975, if I'm not wrong, the music concert in Malaysia. Then who the vocalist kissed the bassist in front of the public in on the stage. May I know from the sides of the speaker's opinion about that? That's all.
Who would like to go first on that? By the way, correct me if I'm wrong, Ray. That I'm not familiar with that, but that was in the 1975 singer Matty Healy, his bandmate on stage. Is that correct?
Yeah. That's right. That's true.
Yeah. To take it more generally, what do the speakers think about such a situation?
Yeah.
Who? Amar or?
Go ahead, Purba, Amar, anybody.
Go ahead. Both of you.
Yeah. I think, this is something that I always notice, on the media also, these days. When we want to show love, it seems to be when we, okay, how do I phrase it? It seems to be showing love is frowned upon than or more I don't know, more famous, I guess, meaning that people are looking for more, they want to see more things like killings, people falling, some riots, people punching each other on media other than kissing, rather than kissing. See what I mean? So showing love seems to be not, I don't know, not famous enough, not, yeah, it's not undesirable, these days, rather than, showing the opposite of love. That's one. Two, how do you stop people from showing love? That's only one incident, but then again, you don't know what's going on behind people's door. People are showing love, people are kissing men to men, women to women, whatever. Me and my ex-boyfriend, we held hand back when we were still together. If we were in a mall, we were holding hands. People were looking at us or staring at us. But then again, because we want to use that, we wanted to use that as part of our activism. We didn't care. So we wanted people to see that more. We wanted people to be exposed to that more so that people can get used to it, Yeah.
Okay. Anything from you, Amar? Oh, Sabrina. Maybe Sabrina can speak, or should I read? Sabrina, by the way, is the founder of Strata.
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight because this is something that I feel like a lot of the conversations whenever we try to talk about, being respectful to the LGBT people, bringing them into the community with us is always like, oh, the story of, Lot or Sodom and Gomorrah. So I don't know, how do you counter things like that? I don't know if you've come across that same conversations.
May I respond to that?
Yeah, go ahead, Amar, please.
Okay, this is very interesting question, and thank you for that, because that is, I think, one of the most common myth, I must say, myth and misinterpretation of the people of Lot or Sodom and Gomorrah in the biblical studies. So these books here, these are actually the books that also talk much about the not the interpretation, but like they approach the text and actually they found out that the curse to the people of Lot is not because of their gender or their sexual orientation, but it is because they are racist and they are anti foreigner who come to their village. Because the story is that the people of Lot, they were very, very hostile towards the people who come to their village, and whoever passed the village, they will rape the people. So even no matter if they are men or women, they will be raped just because they are coming from different village or different nation. So these are the books that are written by Indonesian theologian, Christian, and also Muslim, who also talk much about the people of Lot, and they are very, very very comprehensive, because they are digging into the text like word by word, and then they are concluding that no, the people of Lot is not because of their sexual orientation. So whoever does it is actually about the sexual violence, and so whoever does the sexual violence, it is against the text, the holy text. It is against religion. So the religion, through the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, actually talk about the rejection or even the punishment toward the sexual violence. It talks about about the rights of the body. It talks about the women. It talks about the freedom of the body that shouldn't be violated by other people. And one of the interesting facts of history, how this interpretation saying that the people of Lot or the Sodom of Gomorrah is about sexual orientation, again, is also coming from the colonialism. There are Muslim scholars in this book, also in I think there is also in the US, who wrote a book as well about the historical, what is it called? The historical line. So it is through colonialism who's saying that the gender and sexual morality is unnatural, and it is similarity to the people, the Sodom and Gomorrah. And then the Muslim who once actually had different opinion, but because of the colonialism and the interaction with the Christian theology, and then they absorb and then they internalize their homophobic stance through their theological interpretation. So again, there is a complexity even to those kind of the story. But yeah, and last year they always tell the faith community, even the numbers is not huge, but they always say that people of Lot is about this sexual violence, and we have to be against that sexual violence, not against the gender identity and sexual diversity. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Amar. Sharon, I think you can go next. Oh, where's Sharon? I hope I pronounced your name correct.
Yeah, you pronounced my name correctly.
Right. Introduce yourself, Sharon.
Yeah, I have 2 points. I want to say, like, one is more a question to Amar, but first I just want to add something about this Sodom and Gomorrah. As far as I know, is that like homosexuality and heterosexuality, as a coherent identity to a human, it's actually a pretty new thing. It's like it just happens during the Enlightenment era, So if someone, because before that there is no such thing as, well, of course, like the act itself, it's already there, but we don't like sign label to people as homosexual or heterosexual. It just happened during the Enlightenment era when the Europeans start to dissecting human mind and human behavior, and put labels on them. So if someone gonna use an event pre-Enlightenment era and to justify their queerphobia, then there must be an agenda behind it, because before pre-Enlightenment there is no such thing. And even like if you study even like heterosexuality, for example, it used to be a slur, you know, in the 19th century in Europe, because people use the term heterosexuality to describe a couple who have sex just for fun, you know, who doesn't, couple who have sex to not to have a family, not to have kids. They call them heterosexuality, and they use it as a slur actually. So even heterosexuality was a slur before. You know, just to show you like how things change during, you know. So if someone wanna talk about Sodom and Gomorrah to condemn homosexuality, then they have you know, then they have an agenda. Obviously, they just want to oppress us. And my question is to Amar, because Amar, before you talk about how in after 1965 the Indonesian government used communists as public enemy number one, and before you talk about Hamka, Indonesian scholar who are pro-trans, but today we don't see much of them anymore. And if we see today in Indonesia, like the two largest Muslim organization is NU and Muhammadiyah, if I'm not wrong. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, so my question is, I don't know if you know, but NU and Muhammadiyah is involved in the genocide of the communists in Indonesia in 1965 because they don't want to give their land back to the farmers, right? So my question is there a connection there why the two largest Muslim organizations in Indonesia are very right-wing because of their hatred toward socialist idea? So that is why maybe I want to know if there's like material analysis behind why are the two largest Muslim organization in Indonesia is also against socialist idea, and therefore we don't hear much about I don't know, like a more open-minded. This is why there is no Hamka anymore. This is what I'm saying, basically. So I just want to ask you that. Thank you.
Okay.
Go ahead, Amar.
Thank you for the question. That is very interesting question as well. Well, there is a very complex situation within these two largest Muslim organization. Although it is very disappointing because during the moral panic in 2016, both the organizations, they issued a statement condemning gender and sexual diversity, but actually there are numbers of queer individuals who are part of the NU or Muhammadiyah. I know people who are queer also, but also part of the this Muslim organization. Then I know there are actually allies who are very, very progressive, who are even, you know, giving the endorsement and spoke to the media in BBC. There are these and Nahdlatul Ulama figures who spoke about transgender rights in Islamic theology. And there are actually still these Muslim figures who are you know, who are publicly, you know, supporting queer rights, and they are part of Nahdlatul Ulama. So there is this complexity, yes. But when we talk about the official, because NU is a home for like I don't know, but maybe 60 million people, but officially somehow there are histories where they are part of the allies of the government. You know what I mean? And then they are used by the government for the government agenda, including in the genocide of 65, where NU and also Muhammadiyah were allying with the government, or let's say dimanfaatkan. How to say dimanfaatkan? Apa ya dimanfaatkan maksudnya? Yeah, just used by the government for the government agenda. Yeah, so that is but also interestingly exploited by the government as a shield, as a tool for government's genocide. But interestingly, Nahdlatul Ulama has also a sub-institution that works for the reconciliation of the genocide in 65. There are those voices, even within the Nahdlatul Ulama itself, that criticizing the national stance on anything. For example, when the Nahdlatul Ulama issues a statement on LGBT, there are voices from the Nahdlatul Ulama people saying, no, yes, you have your statement, but we have our own stance, that we need to support the queer community, and they shouldn't be criminalized or marginalized. So that is very complex when we talk about this Muslim organization. But I am actually seeing the future and hope, because, for example, in Indonesia, we have Kongres Ulama Perempuan Indonesia, or I think that is the first in the world, the Women Ulama Congress, where the women Muslim scholars reclaim the term ulama not only for men, but also for women. So in today's context, ulama also refer to the women scholars who are feminists, who are pro-democracy, who are pro-human rights, and even during their congress because I'm also part of the congress, so there were actually the queer community invited to be part of this congress, and even being part of the fatwa statement. So they have their own body institution, approaching Islam through the feminist and human rights approach, where they, for example, their fatwa is on sexual violence. They are supporting the government to issue the sexual violence bills, and they issue the statement that that patriarchy, sexual violence is against Islamic teaching. So I think there is hope actually in Indonesian context right now. Although again, the identity politic is like, I don't know what happens next, but I don't know where it leads, but at least I know that there are the allies in several faith organizations, not only Muslim, but even the Christian. They have this Perwati, Persatuan Wanita Teologi, feminist Christian theology, who are also our allies.
Thank you so much, Purba. Sorry, Amar, and also Purba for being here. Anyway, actually, we have gone over time now. So I would like to say thank you to all participants. Unfortunately, we will have to end our session here. But before we go, I would like to briefly let each speakers, and also Sabrina, the founder of Society for Equality, Respect, and Trust for All, to say a few words. But before that, I'd like to say a million thanks to everybody who attended the session from beginning to end. And I see two participants who just came into the session now towards the end of the session. But worry not, I have the email address. I think if that's okay with the speakers, we will send the recording of this to the participants, if that's okay for them to watch the recorded version of this. By the way, I did this. I invited the speakers because this is issues of identity is very close to my heart. Because when we talk about political identity, it goes beyond the issues of LGBTI. Some people may think the issues of identity is often politicized beyond the realm of LGBT. You can talk about religion, you can talk about language, how you look, your height, maybe the color of your skin, the language that you speak. These are all associated with identities and is often politicized and is often used as a political tool to discriminate you and render you helpless. A lot of us are experiencing this, and I think it is important that we have discussions such as this quite often, and I hope that this will not be the last. So thank you so much, Purba, Amar, and everybody who attended. Megan, unfortunately, has to leave early because she has a flight to catch. And also, Jennifer, my co-moderator, could not speak in this session very much today because of her voice. She's having a sore throat or something. So apologize for that to all. So before we end, again, a million thanks to the participants and the speakers. I hope we can do again a session such as this some other time. So closing remarks from each speaker, and then we will go to Sabrina. Maybe who would like to start first? Anybody? Amar or Purba? Go ahead, Purba.
Okay. I was doing me. I don't know what to say other than what I have in my mind right now is things are gonna be okay. We may have, hit a wall and we need to, have one step back. But remember, we are here right now because of the, all the progress we've made from in the past until now. So yeah, things are gonna be okay.
Thank you, Purba. And Amar?
Yeah, I just want to amplify what has been said by Purba. I think, yes, I mean, we are born this way, we are born to fight. So yes, sometimes there is a lot of backlash, but I think, I always remember that the prophetic message is always being the queer, because they are queer in the front of the injustices. So we are actually bringing the prophetic message, or like divine message, to remind society about being compassionate and loving. And I think it's us who talk much about love will win. So I think, yeah. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And now let's hear from the founder and president, CEO of Sarata, Sabrina. Would you like to say a few words for finish?
Thank you so much to our speakers, Purba, Amar, and also Megan. It has been a very eye-opening session. I also would like to thank Russ, because this is actually his second second webinar where he co-hosted. Last year was also another session as well. It's always good to see young people being very motivated and taking their own initiative to do things like this. Anyway, I just wanted to say that Sarata's core value is about respect, about understanding, compassion. So I believe that we have room to have more conversations like this. I don't feel like even this 2 hours was enough. There's so much, layers to peel, actually in the conversation. But I would like to thank also all the participants for coming and listening, and also sharing their views. Yeah, and that is all from me. Thanks, and back to Russ.
Thank you so much, Sabrina. And again, a million thanks to all the participants, the speakers, and also to Society for Equality, Respect, and Trust for All, and also GAYa NUSANTARA for allowing me to do this, hosting the event. I really hope that we can do this again some other time, because I think there is so much to cover in topics such as this, as Sabrina has said. And I hope this will not be the final one. And I hope everybody can do their own initiative. Just keep on pushing, fighting, just as Amar said. So to participants who just came in, I'm really sorry. We will send you the recorded version of this. And to participants who couldn't make it to the event, we will do just that to all. So thank you so much, everybody, for attending the session. Also to the speakers, Sarata and GAYa NUSANTARA. So I think we will end the session here. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you, guys.
Bye, folks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.
You can.